On my birthday, my daughter-in-law gave me a coffin and said, "Just getting a head start on the next celebration." Everyone burst into laughter. I ate the cake alone while they went out for lunch without me. The next day, they got a letter from my lawyer with the updated will. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I ended up eating birthday cake alone in my own dining room. While my family celebrated without me. My name is Margaret Wilson, and I turned 67 that October 15th. I've been living in the same house for 32 years, the one Robert and I bought when Daniel was just starting middle school. Robert passed 3 years ago, and since then, things had changed in ways I never could have imagined. That morning, I woke up early, as I always do. There's something about birthdays when you're older, they feel heavier, like bookmarks in a story that's getting shorter. I made myself coffee in the kitchen that used to be mine but now felt like Claire's domain. She'd replaced my yellow curtains with gray ones, said they were more modern. The warmth had been slowly drained from every room, just like it had been drained from my life in this house. "Morning, Mom," Daniel said.
Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
Barely looking up from his phone as he grabbed his travel mug. My son, my only child, the baby I carried for 9 months and raised for 38 years, couldn't even make eye contact on my birthday. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" "Fine." He was already heading toward the door. "Claire's handling your party tonight. She's got it all organized, a party." I felt a small flutter of hope. Maybe I'd been too harsh in my judgment. Maybe Claire was trying to make an effort. She'd been my daughter-in-law for 15 years, and our relationship had never been warm. But lately, it had turned into something else entirely. Cold, calculating, cruel in small ways that Daniel never seemed to notice. The day passed slowly. I spent most of it in my room, the guest room now, since Claire had convinced Daniel that she needed the master bedroom for her sleep issues. I'd moved without complaint 2 years ago. "Pick your battles," Robert used to say. But Robert never met Claire. Around 6 p.m., I heard voices downstairs. I'd put on my best dress, the navy blue one Robert bought me for our last anniversary before the cancer took him. My hands shook slightly as I applied lipstick. Silly, maybe, but I wanted to look nice. I wanted to feel like I mattered. When I came down the stairs, the dining room was full. Daniel's colleagues from the firm, Claire's book club friends, the neighbors from 2 houses down who I'd never particularly liked. My grandchildren, Emma and Josh, were there too, both glued to their phones in the corner. "There's a birthday girl," Claire announced, her voice bright and sharp like broken glass. She was wearing a new dress, red and expensive looking. "Everyone. Margaret has finally joined us." The way she said finally made it sound like I kept them waiting for hours. It had been 3 minutes since she called up to me. "We have a very special gift for you, Mom," Claire continued, guiding me to my seat at the table, not the head, where I used to sit, but off to the side like an afterthought. There was a wrapped box in front of me, about the size of a showbox but lighter. The room fell silent as I opened it, everyone watching with expressions I couldn't quite read. Anticipation, amusement. Inside was a miniature coffin, polished wood, brass handles, even a tiny silk pillow inside. It was actually well crafted, which somehow made it worse. This wasn't a last-minute gag gift. Someone had put thought into this. "Just getting a head start on the next celebration," Claire said, and the room erupted in laughter. Not kind laughter, not the gentle teasing that families do. This was something else. Josh actually high-fived his mother. Emma giggled behind her hand. My Daniel was chuckling while shaking his head, like this was just Claire being Claire. "It's from that specialty shop downtown," Claire explained. To her friend Susan, "They make them for Halloween decorations." But I thought, why wait? We all know what's coming. More laughter. My face burned, but I kept my expression neutral. 35 years of being married to a man who worked in corporate finance had taught me how to keep my composure. "How thoughtful," I managed to say. "Oh, come on, Margaret," Claire said. "It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. At your age, you have to have a sense of humor about these things." At my age, I was 67, not 97. I still did my own grocery shopping, still tended the garden that Claire now claimed as her meditation space, still paid the mortgage on this house, though none of them knew that. Last part, now. Claire clapped her hands. "Everyone grab your coats. We have reservations at Tuscany at 7:30. Tuscany, my favorite restaurant. The one where Robert proposed to me 40 years ago, where we'd celebrated every anniversary until he died." People started moving toward the door. I stood up to get my purse. "Oh, Margaret," Claire said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I'm so sorry, but I could only get a table for 12. You understand, right? Someone needs to stay with the cake anyway. We got your favorite chocolate with buttercream frosting." I stood there, my hand frozen on the back of my chair, as my family in a room full of strangers filed out of my house. To celebrate my birthday without me. Daniel paused at the door. For a moment, I thought he might say something, might remember that I'm his mother. Might show a flicker of the boy who used to make me macaroni necklaces for Mother's Day. Save me some cake, Mom, he said, and then he was gone. The house fell silent except for the grandfather clock in the hallway, another thing Claire wanted to get rid of. Because it was too loud. I sat back down at the table, the miniature coffin still in front of me, surrounded by crumpled wrapping paper. The cake was on the kitchen counter, still in its box. I got a knife and a plate, cut myself a generous slice. It was from the grocery store, not even the good bakery. The buttercream was too sweet, the chocolate dry. I ate it anyway, alone at my dining table, in my own house that didn't feel like mine anymore. I thought about Robert. He would have been furious. He would have told Claire exactly what he thought of her cruel joke. But Robert was gone and I was alone, and apparently, that made me an easy target. As I sat there, something shifted inside me. It wasn't anger exactly, I was too tired for anger. It was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity about what my life had become, and what I needed to do about it. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Helen Morrison. We'd been roommates in college before I met Robert, before she went to law school. We exchanged Christmas cards and the occasional email, but we hadn't really talked in years. She answered on the third ring. Margaret? Is that really you? Helen. I'm sorry to call so late. I know it's been a long time, but I need your help, your legal help. There was a pause. Then, tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the coffin, about the birthday dinner I was excluded from, about the 2 years of small humiliations and erasure since Robert died. I told her about the mortgage payments I'd been secretly making because Daniel lost his job for 6 months last year and never quite recovered financially, though they still lived like they had money. I told her about finding Claire's notes about assisted living facilities. Even though I was perfectly healthy, Margaret, Helen said when I finished, her voice tight with controlled anger, you still have the deed to the house. It's complicated. Robert set up some kind of trust before he died. I never really understood it all. The papers are in the safety deposit box at the bank. Can you get them? Yes, good. Get them and overnight them to me. Every single document. And Margaret, start documenting everything. Every cruel comment. Every excluded event. Every penny you spend on that house. Everything after we hung up. I sat in the quiet house, the grandfather clock ticking steadily. Through the window, I could see the garden Robert and I had planted together, now overgrown because Claire didn't like the maintenance. I picked up the miniature coffin, turned it over in my hands. Quality craftsmanship, really. Must have cost at least $50. $50 spent on cruelty. That's when I noticed something rattling inside. I opened the tiny lid and found a note in Claire's handwriting. Hope you get the hint. Oakwood Retirement Village has lovely facilities. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly Claire. Even her cruelty came with instructions. The front door opened around 11 p.m. I heard them laughing, heard Claire describing the amazing tiramisu they'd shared. By then, I cleaned everything up, wrapped the remaining cake, even saved the miniature coffin. Evidence, Helen had said. Document everything. I was in my room when Daniel knocked softly. Mom? You awake? I didn't answer. Let him think I was asleep. Let him live with the knowledge that his mother spent her 67th birthday alone, because his wife thought it would be funny to give me a coffin, and then take everyone out to dinner without me. But I wasn't sleeping, I was planning, because tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would start taking back my life, one legal document at a time. They thought they were getting a head start on my funeral. They had no idea they were actually attending their own. The morning after my birthday, I woke up with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. The house was quiet. Daniel had already left for work, and Claire was at her morning Pilates class. Emma and Josh wouldn't be up for hours. Teenagers, even cruel ones, still needed their sleep. I made my coffee and sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad. Helen had said to document everything. Where did I even begin? The cruelties had been so gradual, so subtle at first, that I'd convinced myself I was being desensitive. That's what Daniel always said, wasn't it? Mom, you're being desensitive. I started with the house. When Robert died 3 years ago, Daniel and Claire had been living in a cramped apartment across town. They were struggling. Daniel's position at the firm wasn't as secure as he pretended, and Claire's online boutique was hemorrhaging money. I'd invited them to move in temporarily, just until they got back on their feet. Temporarily became permanent. Without anyone discussing it, their boxes filled the garage, then the basement, then slowly crept into every room. My things began disappearing, not all at once, but gradually. My mother's china was replaced with Claire's more modern set. The family photos on the walls came down, replaced with abstract art that Claire said was more sophisticated. Margaret, you don't mind. Do you? She'd say after the fact, I mean. We want the house to feel like home for the kids. My grandchildren, who I'd once been so close to. Emma used to bake cookies with me every Sunday. Josh would help me in the garden, chattering about school and his friends. But Claire had slowly poisoned that well too. Grandma's recipes have too much sugar. She'd tell Emma, we're eating clean now. Josh, you don't need to help Grandma with the garden. That's what landscapers are for, except we didn't have landscapers. The garden Robert and I had lovingly tended for decades was dying, and Claire wouldn't let the children help me save it. I wrote it all down, my hand cramping as memory after memory surfaced. The time Claire threw away Robert's fishing trophies, because they were collecting dust. The way she donated my sewing machine to Goodwill without asking because nobody sews anymore. Margaret. The dinner parties where I was introduced as Daniel's mother who lives with us, instead of the owner of the house. That reminded me I needed to get to the bank. First National Bank was a 10-minute drive. I'd been banking there for 35 years, since Robert and I first got our mortgage. The safety deposit box was in both our names, but I'd never removed him from the account somehow. Having his name still there made me feel less alone. Mrs. Wilson, Tom, the bank manager, greeted me warmly. We haven't seen you in ages. How are you? I'm well, Tom. I need to access my safety deposit box. The metal box was heavier than I remembered. Inside were our marriage certificate, birth certificates, Robert's death certificate, and a thick manila envelope labeled House Important in Robert's careful handwriting. I'd never opened it after Robert died. The grief had been so overwhelming that dealing with paperwork seemed impossible. Daniel had said he'd handle everything, and I'd been grateful to let him. Now, sitting in the bank's private room, I finally broke the seal. The first document was a letter in Robert's handwriting. My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're dealing with things alone. I'm sorry for that, my love. But I knew this day would come, and I wanted to protect you. The house is in a trust, the Robert and Margaret Wilson Living Trust. You are the sole trustee now that I'm gone. Daniel may think he owns the house, but check the deed transfer he had you sign. If my suspicions about Claire are correct, and if Daniel is as naive as I fear, they may try to take advantage of your grief. The trust cannot be dissolved without your explicit consent, given in front of two witnesses and a notary. Even if you sign something, unless it met these requirements, the house is still yours. I've also set up a separate account. The number is below. I've been putting money aside for years. It's not much, about $50,000, but it's yours alone. Daniel doesn't know about it. Protect yourself, my love. You're stronger than you know. Forever yours, Robert. My hands shook as I read it again. Robert had known, somehow. He'd seen what Claire was even when she was still pretending to be sweet. And he protected me, even from beyond the grave. The deed transfer Daniel had me sign 2 years ago. I remembered it now. He brought it to me a month after Robert's funeral, when I was still taking sleeping pills just to get through the night. Just a formality, Mom. He'd said, to make sure the house transfers properly. But there had been no witnesses, no notary. Just me, signing whatever my son put in front of me because I trusted him. I photocopied everything twice, one set for Helen, one for me. The account Robert mentioned was still active, still containing $50,000 plus 3 years of interest. I'd been living on Social Security and Robert's pension, never knowing this existed. When I got home, Claire's car was in the driveway. She was in the kitchen with her friend Susan, the one who laughed the loudest at the coffin joke. Oh, Margaret, Claire said, her tone dismissive. We're planning the Thanksgiving menu. Susan's helping me since we're hosting this year. We're hosting in my house without consulting me. How nice, I said, moving past them toward the stairs. Actually, Margaret, while you're here, Claire's voice stopped me. We need to talk about your living situation. I turned slowly. My living situation? Yes. Daniel and I have been discussing it. The stairs are becoming dangerous for someone your age. We found a lovely ground floor apartment at Oakwood Retirement Village. They have medical staff on site, organized activities. You'd be much happier there. Susan nodded sympathetically. My mother loves it there. She's made so many friends. I'm not your mother, I said quietly. No, Claire agreed. But you're getting to that age where decisions need to be made. Daniel agrees it's for the best. We could have you moved in by Christmas. Christmas? 2 months away. They were giving me 2 months in my own home. I'll think about it, I said, which was easier than arguing. There's nothing to think about, Claire said, her voice hardening. Daniel and I have decided the house is getting to be too much for all of us. We might even sell it after you're settled. Sell the house Robert built, where Daniel took his first steps, where we'd celebrated 30 Christmases, where Robert drew his last breath holding my hand. Like I said, I'll think about it. I went upstairs before Claire could respond, but I heard her say to Susan, she's getting more difficult every day. Sometimes I think dementia is setting in. Dementia? I was 67 years old. I did the New York Times crossword every morning, and I remembered every cruel thing she'd ever said. But she was already planting seeds, already creating a narrative where I was a problem to be solved. In my room, I called Helen. I got the documents, I said. Robert set up a trust, the house is still mine. I knew Robert was smart, Helen said. Fax me everything, and Margaret, start looking for a place to live. Not a retirement home, your own place. Somewhere, Claire. Can't touch you. But this is my home for now. But ask yourself, is it worth fighting to stay somewhere where you're not wanted? Or would you rather live peacefully somewhere else? While they deal with the consequences of their actions after we hung up, I sat on my bed, the guest room bed. Because even this space wasn't really mine anymore, and thought about Helen's words. Somewhere Claire couldn't touch me. Somewhere peaceful. Through the window, I could see the lake in the distance, barely visible through the trees. Robert and I used to walk there on Sundays. There was a small community near the water. Mostly older houses, nothing fancy. But they were quiet, private, and far enough away that Claire wouldn't follow. That evening at dinner, Claire was in rare form. She made salmon which she knew I didn't like and spent the entire meal talking about the renovati ons she planned once I moved out. We'll knock down the wall between Margaret's room and the guest room, she told Daniel, make it a proper master suite. Mom's room, Josh corrected quietly. It was the first time either grandchild had acknowledged my presence in days. Claire's eyes flashed. Well, it won't be for much longer. Where's Grandma going? Emma asked, though her tone suggested she didn't much care. Somewhere more appropriate for her needs, Claire said smoothly, right? Daniel, my son, my only child. The boy I'd sacrificed everything for, just nodded while cutting his salmon. Whatever you think is best, honey. Whatever you think is best. Not what do you think, Mom? Not are you comfortable with this? Just complete abdication to Claire's will. I excused myself before dessert, claiming a headache. In my room, I pulled out the legal pad and added the dinner conversation to my documentation. Then I opened my laptop and started looking at rental properties near the lake. One caught my eye immediately, a small 2-bedroom cottage, recently renovated with a garden. Plot in a water view, the rental price was manageable with Robert's secret account. It was available immediately. I bookmarked it, then pulled out my phone to text Helen, found a place. Can you help me with a lease that starts November 1st? Her response was immediate. Already drafting your letter to Daniel and Claire. There. About to learn what happens when you mess with a woman who has nothing left to lose. I smiled for the first time since my birthday. They thought they were pushing me out. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead, planning my exit on my own terms tomorrow. I'd drive by the cottage tomorrow. I'd start packing the things that really mattered, not the furniture or the dishes, but the photos, Robert's watch, my mother's jewelry, the things Claire hadn't managed to disappear yet. Let them have the house. Let them deal with the mortgage they didn't know they have to pay. Let them discover that the trust required my signature to sell. A signature they'd never get. The coffin they'd given me for my birthday sat on my dresser, where I placed it the night before. Evidence, Helen had called it. But to me, it was something else now. It was a reminder that I'd been buried alive in my own home, and it was time to resurrect myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the small cruelties I'd endured, each one chipping away at my dignity. The way Claire would introduce me at parties. This is Daniel's mother. She lives with us because, well, you know how it is with the elderly. I was 67, not 97, but in Claire's narrative, I was already 1 foot in the grave. Or the time she'd thrown away my recipe box, the one my mother had given me, filled with handwritten cards passed down through generations. We have the internet. Now, Margaret, no one needs all that clutter. She'd said it while organizing the kitchen, as if for generations of family recipes were just trash to be discarded. Each memory felt like a small death, a piece of myself that had been erased to make room for Claire's vision of what our family should be. And Daniel, my Daniel, had watched it all happen with the passive acceptance of a man who'd chosen the path of least resistance. But Robert had seen it coming. Robert had protected me. And now, finally, I was ready to protect myself. October 23rd came with an unseasonable chill. The kind that makes your bones ache and reminds you that winter is closer than you like. I'd spent the past week maintaining appearances, making breakfast, doing laundry, keeping quiet. Claire had no idea I'd been to the bank. No idea about the documents that were now safely in Helen's possession. It was a Tuesday morning, when everything shifted. Claire had gone to her book club, Daniel was at work, and the kids were at school. I decided to clean out the attic, or at least, that's what I'd tell anyone who asked. Really? I was looking for more documents. Anything else, Robert? Might have hidden away to protect me. The attic was stifling despite the cool weather outside. Dust motes danced in the streams of light coming through the small window. I navigated around Christmas decorations and boxes labeled Daniel's baby clothes. Things Claire hadn't gotten around to throwing away yet, probably because she never came up here. In the far corner, behind a stack of Robert's old golf magazines, I found a filing cabinet I'd forgotten existed. It was locked, but I remembered Robert keeping keys in an old tobacco tin after some searching. I found it, rust-spotted but still intact. The first drawer contained tax returns going back 20 years, the second had insurance papers, old warranties, the mundane documentation of a life lived responsibly. But the third drawer changed everything. There was a folder labeled CM Investigation in Robert's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, and a private investigator's report dated 6 months before Robert died. The emails were between Claire and someone named Derek. The early ones were flirty, casual, but as I read on, they became something else entirely. Danny doesn't suspect anything, one read. He's to focus on his mother's cooking to notice I'm never home on Thursday nights. The old lady is getting worse, another said. Once Robert kicks it, we can convince Danny to put her in a home. The house has to be worth at least $400,000 in this market. The old lady, that was me. And this was written while Robert was dying of cancer in the bedroom below. But the worst was yet to come. The bank statements showed regular transfers from an account in Claire's name to one in Derek's. The amounts matched exactly what Daniel had been giving her for household expenses. She'd been funneling family money to another man for years. The investigator's report was thorough and devastating. Derek Morrison wasn't just Claire's affair partner, he was her first husband. The divorce had never been finalized, which meant my son's marriage wasn't even legal. I sat on the dusty attic floor, surrounded by evidence of a betrayal so complete it took my breath away. Robert had known. He'd hired an investigator, gathered evidence, and then died before he could do anything with it. Or maybe he'd been waiting, trusting me to find it when I needed it most. There was one more document at the bottom of the folder, a letter from Robert to Daniel, sealed and never sent. Son, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and your mother has finally found the courage to share this with you. Your wife is not who you think she is. I've enclosed proof of her deceptions, financial and otherwise. I wanted to tell you myself, but the cancer moved faster than expected. I'm sorry I failed you in this, but your mother is stronger than you know. Listen to her, believe her, and for God's sake, protect her from Claire. She's not legally your wife, son. She never was. Love? Dad, I heard a car door slam outside and quickly gathered everything, stuffing it into an old suitcase I found in the corner. My heart was racing as I made my way down from the attic, the suitcase heavy in my arms. I'd just hidden it under my bed when I heard Claire's key in the lock. Margaret, she called out. Why is the attic door open? I was looking for the Halloween decorations, I said, coming out of my room. Josh mentioned wanting to decorate this year. She frowned. Josh hasn't cared about Halloween since he was 12. Are you feeling confused again? There it was, another seed planted about my mental state. But now I knew why. She needed me declared incompetent before anyone discovered her marriage was a fraud. I must have misunderstood, I said mildly. Claire studied me for a moment, then shrugged. I'm having some friends over for lunch. We'll be using the dining room, so please find somewhere else to be, of course. I spent the afternoon at the library, using their computer to email Helen everything I'd found. Her response was immediate. Do not confront them yet. This is bigger than we thought. Coming to see you tomorrow. Meet me at the coffee shop on 3rd Street, 10 a.m. When I got home that evening, Claire and Daniel were in the living room with someone I didn't recognize, a woman in a navy suit, carrying a folder with Oakwood Retirement Village emblazoned on the front. Mom, Daniel said, not quite meeting my eyes, this is Miss Patterson from Oakwood. She's here to discuss your options. My options, I repeated, sitting down across from them. Miss Patterson launched into a clearly rehearsed speech about amenities and activities, about medical care and social opportunities. Claire nodded along enthusiastically, occasionally adding comments like, doesn't that sound perfect? And you'll be so much happier there. The best part, Miss Patterson said, pulling out a contract, is that we have an opening next week. Very rare for a facility of our caliber. Next week, I said. That seems rather sudden. Well, Claire interjected, we've already put down the deposit. Daniel signed the preliminary papers yesterday. I looked at my son. You signed papers about my living situation without discussing it with me? He shifted uncomfortably. Claire said, you've been confused lately, having trouble remembering things. We thought it best to handle the details for you. I see. I turned to Miss Patterson. And what happens to my assets when I move to Oakwood? Oh, that's all handled by your power of attorney, she said brightly. Mr. Wilson explained that he'd be managing your affairs, Power of attorney. They were trying to take control of everything, my finances, my freedom, my life, and they were doing it while looking me in the eye and calling it care. I'll need to think about this, I said. Mom, Daniel started. I said I'll think about it. I stood up. Miss Patterson, thank you for coming. I'm sure Oakwood is lovely, but I'm not ready to make any decisions today. Claire's face darkened. Margaret, you're being unreasonable. We're trying to help you, no. I said quietly, you're trying to dispose of me. The silence that followed was deafening. Miss Patterson gathered her materials quickly, sensing the tension. I'll just leave the brochures, call if you have any questions after she left. Claire turned on me. How dare you embarrass us like that? Embarrass you? You're trying to put me in a home without my consent. It's for your own good, Daniel said weakly. The stairs, Mom, and you've been forgetting things. Name one thing I've forgotten. They exchanged glances. Well, Claire said, you thought Josh wanted Halloween decorations. That's not forgetting, that's mishearing. There's a difference. You're being difficult, Claire snapped. As usual, I'm being difficult. You gave me a coffin for my birthday. You took my family to dinner without me. You've erased me from my own home piece by piece. And I'm the difficult one. Mom, please. Daniel said, you're getting emotional. Good, I said. It's about time. I got emotional. I've been sleepwalking through the past 3 years, letting you both treat me like a ghost in my own house. But I'm done. I'm not going to Oakwood. I'm not signing any power of attorney. And I'm not disappearing just because Claire finds me inconvenient. Claire stood up, her face flushed with anger. You don't have a choice. Daniel and I have already decided. Actually, I said, remembering Robert's letter, remembering the trust, remembering everything, I have more choices than you know. I went to my room and locked the door, ignoring Daniel's knocking and Claire's demands that I be reasonable. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Helen. You've never mentioned anyone named Derek before. Why would I? He's just the buyer's agent. The lie came so easily, so smoothly. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed her. Daniel came home then, looking harried. Mom, thank God you're back. Miss Patterson will be here soon. Did you sign the papers? Not yet? Mom, please. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder for whom? Daniel, for me? Being forced from my home? Or for you? Having to look me in the eye while you betray me? His face flushed. That's enough. You're being irrational. This is exactly why you need professional care, because I won't quietly disappear. Claire stepped forward. Margaret, let me be very clear. You're going to Oakwood today. Daniel has medical power of attorney. Dr. Phillips signed off on it this morning, citing cognitive decline. If you don't go voluntarily, we'll have you committed. Dr. Phillips? I haven't seen Dr. Phillips in 2 years, no. But I have, Claire said smugly. I've been keeping him updated on your condition. The confusion, the paranoia, the hostility. He agrees that you need supervised care. They planned everything. Every angle covered, every base loaded, except they didn't know about the wire. They didn't know about Detective Chen down the street. They didn't know about Robert's evidence. You've thought of everything, I said. I always do, Claire replied. It's why this will work. Derek and I. She caught herself again. The buyers will get a beautiful house. Daniel and I will get a fresh start. And you'll get the care you need. Everyone wins. Derek and you? I repeated. You were about to say Derek and I. Her face went pale. I said the buyers. No. You said Derek and I. Who is Derek? Claire. Nobody. You're confused again. Am I? Or is Derek Morrison your husband? Your real husband? The silence was deafening. Daniel looked between us, confusion clear on his face. What is she talking about, Claire? She's having an episode. Claire said quickly. This is exactly what Dr. Phillips warned about. Paranoid delusions. It's not a delusion if it's true, I said, pulling out my phone. I dephotographed one of the key documents. This is your marriage certificate, Claire. To Derek Morrison. Dated 3 years before you married my son. Daniel took the phone with shaking hands. This can't be real. It's very real. Your father knew. He hired an investigator before he died. Your marriage is fraudulent, Daniel. She's been sending money to Derek for years. They're planning to buy our house together. Claire's mask finally shattered completely. You stupid old woman. You couldn't just go quietly. Could you, Claire? Daniel's voice was small, broken. Is this true? She turned on him then. All pretense gone, no? Grow up, Daniel. Did you really think someone like me would stay with someone like you? Weak, indecisive. Still tied to your mother's apron strings. This was always temporary, just long enough to get what I deserved. What you deserved, I said. You deserved my house, my family's money. I deserved compensation for 15 years of pretending to be part of this pathetic family. For sleeping next to a man who bores me to tears. For pretending those children were enough when Derek and I could have had so much more. The children, Daniel whispered. Emma and Josh, they're mine, aren't they? Claire laughed, cold and bitter. Of course they're yours. I'm not stupid. I needed legitimate heirs for the inheritance. Though God knows they inherited your weakness. The doorbell rang. Miss Patterson, arriving for my forced commitment. But she wouldn't be taking me anywhere. Because Detective Chan had heard everything, the wire had caught it all, the fraud, the confession, the cruelty laid bare. That will be Miss Patterson, Claire said, composing herself. Margaret, I suggest you cooperate. It will be easier for everyone. But when Daniel opened the door, it wasn't just Miss Patterson. Detective Chen stood beside her, badge visible, with 2 uniformed officers behind her. Claire Morrison, Detective Chen said, stepping into the house, you're under arrest for bigamy, fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The look on Claire's face was something I'll never forget, shock, rage, and then a terrible understanding as she saw the small wire I pulled from under my shirt. You recorded me, every word, I said quietly. As they handcuffed her, Claire looked at me with pure hatred. You've destroyed everything. No, I said. You destroyed everything. I just refused to be buried along with it. The house felt different after they took Claire away. Quieter, but not peaceful, more like the silence after an explosion, when your ears are still ringing and you're not sure if it's really over. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, while Emma and Josh stood in the doorway, having come home from school to find police cars in our driveway. Dad? Emma's voice was small, uncertain. Where's Mom going? Daniel looked up at me, helpless. How do you tell children that their mother is a criminal? That their parents' marriage was never real? That their whole life has been built on lies? Your mom needs to go answer some questions, I said gently. Why don't you both go upstairs for a bit? Your dad and I need to talk. Josh, who'd been so cruel at my birthday, now looked lost. Grandma, is this our fault? Did we do something wrong? No. Sweetheart, none of this is your fault. After they went upstairs, Daniel finally spoke. How long have you known about Claire's real marriage? A week. About her treatment of me? 3 years. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at my son. This broken man who just learned his entire adult life was a lie. Would you have believed me? Every time I tried to tell you something was wrong, you said I was being desensitive. You chose her, Daniel, every single time. I loved her. You loved who you thought she was. We all did at first. Detective Chen returned an hour later with more questions and more paperwork. Claire had been denied bail apparently. She was considered a flight risk. Derek Morrison had been arrested at his apartment, along with evidence of 3 other similar schemes in different states. They were professionals, it seemed, con artists who specialized in vulnerable families. Mrs. Wilson, Detective Chen said, we found something else you should know about. Claire had taken out a life insurance policy on you, a big one, $2 million. With herself as a beneficiary. The roof spun slightly. When, 6 months ago, right around the time she started telling people you were showing signs of dementia. Daniel made a sound like he'd been punched. She was planning to. 2. We can't prove intent, Detective Chen said carefully, but combined with the forced placement in a facility, the power of attorney fraud, it paints a concerning picture. After Detective Chen left, Daniel and I sat in silence. The grandfather clock ticked in the hallway, the one Claire had wanted to throw away. Everything in the house felt like evidence now. Proof of a life that had been real for some of us, and performance art for others. The house, Daniel said suddenly. The sale. Can we stop it? Already done, I said. Helen filed an emergency injunction this morning. The trust Robert set up means the sale was never legal anyway. The house couldn't be sold without my signature, properly notarized and witnessed. You knew about the trust. I found out the day after my birthday, the same day I found Robert's evidence about Claire. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He knew. Dad knew what she was, he suspected. He loved you too much to accuse her without proof, and then the cancer moved too fast. I miss him, Daniel whispered, and suddenly he was crying. Great. Gulping sobs like he was 5 years old again. I miss him so much, Mom. He would have known what to do. He would have protected us. He did protect us, I said, putting my arm around him. He left us everything we needed to protect ourselves. We just had to be brave enough to use it that evening. After a dinner of scrambled eggs and toast, comfort food, the kind I used to make when Daniel was sick, my phone rang. It was Helen. Margaret, I'm at my office. Can you come by? There's something you need to see. I left Daniel with the kids and drove to Helen's law firm. She was waiting for me with a thick folder and a grim expression. Claire's lawyer contacted me. She said, she wants to make a deal. What kind of deal? She'll sign divorce papers, relinquish all claims to the house and assets, and provide evidence against Derek's other schemes. In exchange, she wants a reduced sentence and no financial restitution. No financial restitution. She stole from me for years, I know. But Margaret, there's something else, she's pregnant. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Derek's, she says it's Daniel's, but given the timing in her relationship with Derek, who knows? The point is, it complicates things. A jury might be sympathetic to a pregnant woman, even a criminal one. I thought about Daniel, just beginning to process. This trauma, another child, possibly his, possibly not, would anchor him to Claire forever. There's more, Helen continued. I've been going through the financial records. Claire and Derek stole close to $200,000 over the years. But here's the interesting part, your house is worth far more than you think. The market's exploded in your neighborhood. Conservative estimate, $1.2 million. I stared at her. That's impossible. We bought it for $80. Zero in 1992. Welcome to real estate inflation. Margaret, you're sitting on a gold mine. Which explains why Claire was so desperate to get control of it. What about the retirement home? The deposit Daniel supposedly paid never happened. It never happened. Tomorrow we'd start the process of reclaiming my life. But tonight, I pulled out the suitcase from under my bed and read through everything again. Derek Morrison, Claire's real husband, the man she'd been sending money to while playing house with my son. The investigation report included an address he lived just 2 hours away. There were photos too, grainy but clear enough. Claire and Derek together at a restaurant, holding hands, date stamp, 3 weeks ago. My son was living a lie, raising children with a woman who wasn't even legally his wife, planning to put his mother in a home to access money that wasn't theirs, all while being betrayed in ways he couldn't imagine. The cruelty of it all was breathtaking. But what hurt most was Daniel's willing participation in my erasure. He might not know about Claire's deception, but he knew how she treated me. He watched her diminish me daily and chose her comfort over my dignity. Well, tomorrow that would change. Tomorrow, with Helen's help, I'd begin the process of revealing the truth. Not out of vengeance, but out of necessity, because if I didn't act now, I'd spend whatever years I had left in a facility I didn't choose. While Claire and her real husband enjoyed the fruits of my family's labor, I thought about Robert, about how he'd seen all this coming. You're stronger than you know, he'd written. I was about to find out if he was right. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Reviewed everything. This is bigger than just elderly abuse. This is bigamy, fraud, and attempted financial exploitation. Bring everything tomorrow. We're going to need more than just a lawyer. We're going to need the police. The police. The word sent a shiver through me. This was really happening. The facade was about to crumble. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. From downstairs, I could hear Claire on the phone. She's being completely unreasonable. Yes? Next week would be perfect. No. She doesn't need to agree. Daniel has power of attorney. Or will by tomorrow. Power of attorney by tomorrow. They were planning to force me to sign something. But they'd made a critical error. They'd given me tonight to prepare. And sometimes one night is all you need to change everything. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the house sounded like Claire coming to force me to sign papers. Every shadow felt like a threat. I packed a small bag with essentials, medications, important documents, some clothes, and the suitcase full of Robert's evidence. If things went badly tomorrow, I might not be coming back to this house. At 3 a.m., I crept downstairs and made copies of everything on Daniel's printer. The whirring seemed impossibly loud in the quiet house, but no one stirred. I hid one set in the garage behind Robert's old tool chest, another in a plastic bag in the garden shed. If something happened to the originals, I'd have backups. The morning came too quickly. Daniel was at the breakfast table when I came down, a stack of papers in front of him. Mom, he said, his voice carefully neutral. We need to talk about your future. My future, I repeated, pouring myself coffee with steady hands. Not our future. Not the family's future, just mine. Don't be dramatic. This is what's best for everyone. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become this person? This stranger who could calmly discuss discarding his mother over morning coffee. These are power of attorney papers, he continued, sliding them toward me. It's just a formality. You'll still make your own decisions. But if something happens, Claire and I can help manage things. Claire, I said slowly, your wife wants to manage my affairs. She has experience with this. Her mother went through the same transition. Her mother, Claire had told me her mother died when she was 20. Another lie? Or was Derek's mother the one she meant? I need to read these first, I said, taking the papers. Mom, just sign them. Miss Patterson is coming back this afternoon to finalize everything. This afternoon? But I haven't even agreed to go to Oakwood. Daniel's jaw tightened. You're going. Mom, it's been decided. The house is sold. The words hit me like ice water. What? We accepted an offer last week. The new owners take possession December 1st. That give you a month to adjust to the idea. You sold my house, our house. He corrected. I'm on the deed, remember? The deed I'd signed in my grief. That Robert had warned might not be legal. But Daniel didn't know that. He thought he already won. I see, I said quietly. And where will you live? We're buying a place in Westfield, bigger, better schools for the kids. Claire's already started packing. Of course she had. She'd been planning this for months. Maybe years. Get me out, sell the house, start fresh with the money, except the house couldn't be sold without my signature on the trust documents. They were about to hit a wall they didn't know existed. I have an appointment this morning, I said, standing up. We'll discuss this when I get back, Mom. You can't just leave. We need these signed. This afternoon, Daniel. I'll be back this afternoon. I walked out before he could respond, my hands shaking as I got into my car. The small bag I'd packed was already in the trunk. Along with the evidence, I drove to 3rd Street, checking my mirrors constantly, half expecting Daniel or Claire to be following me. Helen was already at the coffee shop, sitting in a corner booth with another woman I didn't recognize. Margaret, Helen said, standing to hug me. This is Detective Sarah Chen. She specializes in elder abuse and fraud cases. Detective Chen. My heart sank and soared simultaneously. This was really happening, Mrs. Wilson. Detective Chen said, shaking my hand. Helen's shown me the documents. This is a serious situation. Your daughter-in-law has committed multiple crimes. We sat down and I pulled out everything: Robert's investigation, the emails, the bank records, the bigamy evidence. Detective Chen examined each piece carefully, taking notes. The marriage fraud alone is a felony, she said. The financial exploitation, the attempted forced placement in a facility, the forged documents. Mrs. Wilson, your daughter-in-law is looking at significant jail time. And my son, Detective Chen's expression softened. That depends on what he knew and when. If he's been deceived like you have, he's a victim too. But if he's complicit, she trailed off. But the implication was clear. There's more, Helen said. I did some digging. The house they claimed to have sold, the buyers are Derek and Patricia Morrison. Derek is Claire's real husband, I finished. They were going to sell my house to themselves, probably for far less than market value. It's a shell game, Detective Chen said. Move the asset to Derek. Claire divorces your son, takes half of whatever's left and reunites with her real husband. Your son would be left with nothing and you'd be locked away in a facility. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. This wasn't just about getting rid of an inconvenient old woman. This was about destroying my entire family for money. What do I do? I asked. First, don't sign anything, Helen said firmly. Second, we need to secure your assets immediately. Third, Detective Chen needs to build her case. This could take a few days. I don't have a few days. They're expecting me to sign papers this afternoon. Miss Patterson from Oakwood is coming back. Detective Chen leaned forward. Then we accelerate things. Mrs. Wilson, are you willing to wear a wire? A wire, like in the movies, will it help? If we can get Claire on tape discussing the fraud, admitting to the plan, it strengthens our case significantly. I thought about going back to that house, pretending everything was normal while wearing a recording device. The idea terrified me. But then I thought about Robert, about the evidence he gathered, about the faith he had in my strength. Yes, I said, I'll do it. 2 hours later, I was back at the house with a small recording device taped to my ribs. Detective Chen was parked down the street in an unmarked car. Helen was at the police station, filing paperwork to freeze the house sale. Claire was in the kitchen when I walked in, Derek's photo barely visible on her phone screen before she quickly locked it. Where have you been? She demanded. Daniel's been calling you. I went for a drive. I needed to think. Well, thinking time is over. Miss Patterson will be here in an hour. I've already packed some of your things. How thoughtful, I said, noticing boxes in the hallway labeled Margaret, Oakwood, my life, boxed up and labeled for disposal. Claire, I said carefully. Can I ask you something? She sighed dramatically. What now? Why do you hate me so much? The question seemed to surprise her. For a moment, her mask slipped. I don't hate you, Margaret. You're just in the way. This was supposed to be our house, our life. But you're always here. Always reminding Daniel of his father. Always making me feel like an outsider. You made yourself an outsider, I said quietly. I welcomed you into this family. You tolerated me. There's a difference. She turned to face me fully. Do you know what it's like to be married to a mama's boy? Daniel can't make a decision without wondering what you think. Even when we're in bed, I know he's thinking about whether you'd approve. The vulgarity of it, the casual cruelty made me flinch. But I pressed on. So your solution is to put me in a home and sell my house? It's not your house anymore, she said coldly. Daniel signed the papers. We close in 3 weeks. Derek, she caught herself. The buyers are paying cash, Derek. I repeated, that's an interesting name. Her eyes narrowed. Common name, is it? Common name, is it? That money went straight to Derek. Miss Patterson thought she was dealing with a legitimate placement. She's mortified, actually. Offered to testify on your behalf. We talked for another hour, going through options and strategies. By the time I left, my head was spinning with legal terms and financial figures. But one thing was clear. I had power now, real power. The question was how to use it. When I got home, I found Daniel in Robert's old study, going through photo albums, pictures of our life before Claire family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings when everything was simple and true. Look at this one, he said, holding up a photo of his 5th birthday. Robert was lifting him up to blow out the candles while I laughed in the background. We were so happy. We were. Can we be happy again after all this? I sat down beside him. Different happy, maybe. But yes, I think we can, Mom. I'm sorry for everything. For choosing her over you, for not seeing what was happening, for the birthday. His voice broke. God, the coffin. How could I laugh at that? You were under her influence. She's very good at what she does. That's no excuse. I'm 38 years old. I should have protected you. You should have, I agreed. But you didn't, and now we both have to live with that. It was harsh. Maybe, but it was true. Trust, once broken, doesn't magically repair itself with apologies. Emma appeared in the doorway, eyes red from crying. Grandma, is Mom really not coming back? Come here, sweetheart. She curled up against me. This teenager who'd been too cool for grandmother hugs just days ago. I heard Dad on the phone. He said Mom wasn't really married to him. How is that possible? Daniel and I exchanged glances. How much truth could a 16-year-old handle? Your mom was already married to someone else, I said carefully. She didn't. Tell us, so? We're bastards. Josh had appeared to, his face pale. No, Daniel said firmly. You're my children, that's all that matters. But everything's been a lie, Emma said. Our whole family is fake. No, I said, pulling both children close. Your dad's love for you is real. My love for you is real. The family we are you, your dad and me, that's real. Claire was the fake part and now she's gone. That night I couldn't sleep again. But for different reasons, the house felt lighter. Like it could breathe again. I walked through the rooms, seeing them differently. The gray paint Claire had chosen could be covered. The photos she'd removed could be rehung. The garden she'd let die could be replanted. At 3 a.m. My phone buzzed with an email from Helen. Margaret, Claire's lawyer, sent over her full confession. You need to read this. She admits to everything, including planning to have you declared incompetent and taking out that life insurance policy. But there's something else. She named 3 other families they've done this to. 3 other elderly parents displaced, isolated, and robbed. You weren't just saving yourself, Margaret, you were stopping a serial predator. The FBI is now involved. This is huge. Call me in the morning. I sat on my bed in my room. In my house, Anne read Claire's confession. It was clinical, emotionless, like a business report. She described targeting widowed parents with adult children, playing on family dynamics, slowly taking control. She and Derek had perfected their system over 15 years. But we'd stop them. Robert's paranoia, my hidden strength, Helen's expertise, and even Daniel's final awakening, we'd stop them. November 21st arrived gray and drizzly, matching the mood in the house. It had been exactly 37 days since my birthday, since the coffin gift that had started my awakening. Helen had said the formal letter would arrive today, the one that would change everything. Daniel had taken the day off work. He sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a coffee mug, looking older than his 38 years. The children had gone to school. We'd all agreed that maintaining routine was important. What time did Helen say? He asked for the 3rd time. She just said morning delivery, at 9:47 a.m. The doorbell rang. We both froze. Then Daniel stood up slowly. I'll get it. I heard him sign for the certified mail. Heard the door close. Heard his footsteps returning to the kitchen. He held a thick manila envelope marked legal documents urgent. Should I open it? He asked. It's addressed to both of us. He broke the seal and pulled out a stack of papers. The cover letter was from Helen's firm, Dear Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Wilson. Enclosed, please find the following documents regarding the matter of Wilson v. Morrison, annulment. Papers for the fraudulent marriage between Daniel Wilson and Claire Morrison, criminal complaint filed by the state against Claire Morrison and Derek Morrison, restraining orders against both defendants, financial audit showing $237. Zero in stolen funds, confirmation showing Margaret Wilson as sole owner of the property at 42 Maple Street, power of attorney revocation. For all previous documents, custody arrangement recommendations. For minor children, please review all documents carefully. A full criminal trial is scheduled for January 15th. Mrs. Morrison has agreed to plead guilty to all charges, in exchange for a reduced sentence of 18 months. Mr. Morrison faces 5 to 10 years for running an interstate fraud ring. Additionally, please note that Mrs. Morrison's pregnancy has been confirmed. Paternity tests have been ordered by the court. We remain at your service for any questions or concerns. Sincerely, Helen Morrison. Attorney-at-law. Daniel set the papers down with shaking hands. It's really over. No, I said quietly, it's really beginning. 1 year later, October 15th, he woke up on my 68th birthday to the sound of actual birds singing. Not the manufactured cheerfulness that Claire used to perform. The morning sun streamed through windows. I painted yellow again, Robert's favorite color. The color of warmth and home. Grandma. Grandma. Josh's voice carried up the stairs. Come down. We made breakfast. I smiled, taking my time getting dressed. No rush, no walking on eggshells, no careful navigation of someone else's moods. Just my house, my family, my life reclaimed and rebuilt. The kitchen smelled like burned bacon and too much vanilla in the pancake batter. But it was perfect. Emma stood at the stove, spatula in hand, while Josh set the table with the good china, my mother's china that we'd retrieved from storage. Happy birthday, Mom, Daniel said, pulling out my chair. He looked healthier now. The stress lines softened. The weight of deception lifted from his shoulders. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Claire was serving her 18-month sentence in minimum security. The baby she delivered, a boy, had been proven through DNA testing to be Derek's child. Another lie, the final one. We have something for you, Emma said, producing a wrapped box about the size of a showbox. For a moment, my chest tightened. The memory of last year's coffin flashed through my mind, but then I saw their faces, excited, loving, genuine, and I knew this was different. Inside was a photo album, handmade, with Grandma's real story written on the cover in Josh's messy handwriting. The first page had a picture of me from my college days, young and fearless, with Helen beside me. We interviewed Helen, Emma explained, and your sister in Colorado, and Tom from the bank. Even Ms. Patterson. She felt so bad about everything. She wanted to contribute. Page after page told my story, not as Daniel's mother or Robert's widow, but as Margaret Wilson, the woman who'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through college, who'd started a small business that failed but taught her resilience, who'd raised a son while her husband traveled for work, who'd survived betrayal and emerged stronger. We wanted you to know that we see you, Josh said quietly, the real you, not just Grandma, but the person you are. I couldn't speak for a moment, tears blurring my vision. These children who'd laughed at my humiliation a year ago had grown up fast, forced to confront ugly truths about their mother and themselves. Thank you, I managed. This is everything. There's more, Daniel said. Look outside in the backyard where the garden had been dying. New plants were everywhere, roses, tomatoes. The herbs I'd always grown. A small crew was still working, installing what looked like a greenhouse in the corner. We've been working on it for months, Emma said. We wanted to surprise you, and tonight, Daniel added, we have reservations at Tuscany. All of us, together, if you want to go. Tuscany, where they'd gone without me last year, where Robert had proposed. The gesture wasn't lost on me. This was about reclaiming spaces, rewriting memories. I'd love that, I said. The doorbell rang and Josh ran to answer it. He returned with Helen, who was carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a huge smile. Thought I'd stop by to wish you a happy birthday and share some news, she said, hugging me tight. Derek Morrison was sentenced yesterday. 10 years, no, parole for 5. He's been connected to 7 more families across 3 states. 7 more families, I repeated, thinking of all those displaced parents, all those stolen futures. But here's the best part, Helen continued. The FBI recovered almost $2 million in assets. Every family is getting restitution, including you. I sat down slowly. How much? About $400,000, your stolen funds plus damages. Daniel whistled low. Mom, that's incredible. It's justice, Helen corrected, finally. That evening at Tuscany, I sat at the head of the table, my rightful place. The manager, recognizing me, came over personally. Mrs. Wilson, I heard about everything that happened. I'm so sorry we were part of that night. You didn't know. I said graciously. None of us really knew. The meal was perfect, not because everything was elegant or sophisticated, but because it was real. Josh told terrible jokes. Emma talked about her college applications. Daniel shared stories from work without constantly checking his phone for Claire's approval. I've been thinking, Daniel said over dessert, about the house, Mom. It's yours. It should stay yours. The kids and I, we can find our own place. I looked at my son, this man who'd finally learned to stand on his own feet. No, I said. This is our home, all of us. But with boundaries this time, with respect. Are you sure? I'm sure. But I'm taking back the master bedroom. Everyone laughed real laughter. Not the cruel kind from last year. Oh, and Daniel, I added, I'm dating someone. The table went silent. Emma's mouth dropped open. His name is William. I met him at the senior center. Yes, I joined the senior center by choice. He's a retired English professor, widowed, and he makes me laugh. We're going to Italy next month, Mom. That's… Daniel paused, then smiled genuinely. That's wonderful. I know Claire always said I was too old for romance. But it turns out 68 is exactly the right age to know what you want and refuse to settle for less. As we walked to the car after dinner, Emma linked her arm through mine. Grandma, I'm sorry for everything. For laughing at the coffin, for being cruel, for not seeing what was happening. You were a child being influenced by an adult. But you see clearly now, and that's what matters. Do you forgive us? I thought about it carefully. I'm learning. 2. Forgiveness isn't instant, sweetheart. It's a process. But we're getting there back home. As everyone settled in for the evening, I stepped out into the garden. The new plants were small but thriving, reaching toward the light. Above Robert's greenhouse, someone had hung a sign, Margaret's garden where everything grows better with love. My phone buzzed with a text from William. Hope your birthday was everything you deserved. Can't wait to hear about it tomorrow. Sweet dreams, beautiful, beautiful. At 68, after everything, I was beautiful to someone who saw me clearly. I thought about Claire in her prison cell, about Derek facing a decade behind bars. I thought about the other families they destroyed and the justice finally served. But mostly, I thought about the coffin they'd given me last year, that cruel joke that had somehow become the catalyst for my resurrection. They thought they were burying me. Instead, they planted a seed, and like everything in my garden, I'd grown back stronger, reaching toward the light, refusing to stay in the ground where they tried to put me. Thank you. I whispered to the night sky, to Robert, to the universe that had given me the strength to fight back. Tomorrow I'd wake up in my house, surrounded by my real family, preparing for a trip to Italy with a man who valued me. I'd tend my garden, have lunch with Helen, maybe write in the journal Dr. Patterson had suggested, not because I was forced into therapy, but because I'd chosen it. My life at 68 wasn't what I'd expected at 67. It was infinitely better because it was mine, earned through pain, rebuilt with courage, and protected with boundaries that no one would cross again. The coffin still sat on my dresser upstairs. I kept it as a reminder. Some gifts, even the cruel ones, can become exactly what we need. Sometimes being pushed toward an ending is really just the beginning in disguise, and sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's simply living well, surrounded by love in the home that was always yours.